Okay, so this is a student project and I wanted to just go through it with you so you have an idea of drawings. There's 3 videos to choose from. This is one of 3. So hopefully this kind of material will be helpful for when you have to make your own drawings. So the first thing is pick a photograph, right? So you want to pick a photograph and then print it out, glue it on top of your piece of Bristol board or cardstock, right? So you have your 8.5 by 11, you glue it down. Is this the best photograph? It doesn't have much diversity in it. It's really a lot of curvilinear shapes and a lot of the same. It's okay. The project was okay. But I'm showing it to you because I think it's useful for me to talk about things in respect to is something great or how can it be improved? So the first drawing is your contour drawing. Contour drawing is, again, trying to draw the shapes. You don't have to do everything, but some people like to do a lot of the composition. Draw the main emphasized shapes to your essential items. You don't want to have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of detailed drawing. This gives you a good idea of the various types of shapes within the original photograph. And it's nice. You can actually do the contour by putting your marker down and kind of playing with it and never lifting it up if you want to do that. The next is isolating points. This is an isolation of points drawing. Again, more points gives you blacker or more dense. Less points gives you lighter. You can play with the density of things. So when you use your marker and you kind of do stipulation, like little stipples, with the top of your marker, then you can kind of get into a meditative rhythmic process and decide how you decide to put what goes in, what stays out. You don't have to do the whole thing. Again, do you want things that are similar? Do you want items that are larger and smaller? What kind of balance do you want to create? Each one of these is not just replicating or repeating the actual original photograph. Each one of these drawings should be seeing and reinterpreting the original photograph. So you're doing it with points here. The next is isolating line. So this is different than contour line. Contour line, and again, you're kind of trying to isolate the essential shapes in the composition. Isolating the line, you can draw just curvilinear lines if you want, right? You can draw just diagonal lines, horizontal or verticals. There aren't really any in this drawing. But if you wanted to stipulate like, wow, I'm going to just draw the diagonal lines, that's all I'm going to do for this drawing, then you would look for those. Same with the other, horizontal, vertical. So he chose to do kind of very organic lines throughout with a few emphasis points here, here, and here. This is isolation of plane. Again, this drawing doesn't have lots of geometry in it, so there's not a lot of geometric planes, but he does have some highlights. He's got some negative space, right? So here's some highlights if you look back, and the plane of the actual apple. What's helpful about this drawing is the negative space, which then becomes a plane, right? So we could argue, is it really a plane or a space? Planes are in space, and that's okay. This is geometric isolation of points. Now, does this look very geometric? No. It probably needed to be much more geometric looking with the stars, much more tight if you're going to do kind of horizontal lines. So again, you want to be very precise. There'll be some other student videos there where this is clearer, but you want to make a new drawing using points to make shapes and forms that look very geometric. This is isolating geometric line. So you want to make lines. Make sure you use your ruler when you draw them. Do you have to make all of the lines? No. Again, it's like, what kind of lines do you want to make? Do you want them to connect? They don't have to connect, but they should kind of make a more geometric shapes and forms if you actually close things, right? So that's why these apples look very geometric looking. This is a great example. This is also a good example of isolating geometric planes. So the apples are curvilinear. They do have curvilinear planes, right? So again, this is why this original photograph was more difficult for him, because there wasn't much geometry in it. So you have these planes, like looking at an apple and breaking it down into kind of volumetric three-dimensional form. You have the base, you have the side. This is a great example. The only thing with this drawing is they added texture in by mistake, right? So that looks like a great drawing. I love it, but you're not supposed to mix texture in. So these parts are wonderful. This is texture, phenomenally excellent drawing. So the way that the lines go, they can go this way. Even in these little shapes, they go in a different direction. This is highly dense linear lines that makes blacker, more textural space or shape. And then this has less lines, right? So it's lighter feeling. So you can get some darks and lights in shading actually with texture, but he only used line, and it's really, really nicely done. This is your mix. So your last one you can mix whatever you want. So he put some isolation he put in texture, isolation of points, and some geometric planes. Could he have mixed it up a little bit more? Probably so. There's a little bit too much. It's kind of like boop, 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 right? That's interesting, but it might have been cool to have some points over here, maybe a little bit of texture over there. So finally, when you want to do your layering, you want to be looking at how your layers are on top of one another, right? So it's kind of neat to see the contour with the points underneath. You could even say, oh, look at the planes and the lines together. Now, this is consecutively set up. Some of them show better than others, right? This is kind of interesting with the three-dimensional coming through with the texture. Lastly, you want to choose one of these drawings and then make your part 2 three-dimensional sculpture. If you do not lay out your layers in consecutive order 1 through 9, please make sure that you label what number it is on the back with a pencil, because then that will help me understand your intentionality. So the second part of this project is to create a three-dimensional type of sculpture out of paper from your original drawing and from your drawing. So if you remember, okay, this is the original photograph, apples. And then there's some contour drawings in here, right? So after working with part 1 of your project, you're going to be inspired, right? And this student was inspired, not necessarily by one drawing. I'm going to say he was inspired by the contour drawing the most, right? So if you look at this drawing, and then you look at the actual three-dimensional sculpture, right? He played with the concept of drawing the apples, right, out of it, and then pulled them out. And then he even made some holes here and put some worms in here. And then here's another drawing of an apple, right, from the contour, and then he made a bite out of it. And then here's another one, same, but he also put a worm and he made it three-dimensional. So he's actually having a lot of fun. Now, is it interesting as a composition, as a sculpture itself? It's okay. It's like 3 apples on the table. It could have been more interesting as far as how you designed it on the page, but he got some great points for being really funny and inventive and doing some good craft. So as you can see, it's a full piece of paper. You be inspired. You can draw, you can erase the lines, but you cut it out and you fold up. You can do extra things, the worms and the holes that weren't in the original photograph. You can actually have fun with creating some negative spaces, but you don't want to cut out the pieces. You want to fold them up so they're completely connected to the piece of paper, and then the piece of paper becomes a paper sculpture.